welcome, Karen, to our Leaders Who Care series. It's awesome to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And I guess shout out to, which you corrected me on, to Pete and Brady over in the
Yes.
Tudor Jones, world, basically, for connecting us through with Jake and Ed. And it's all a small world because everybody seems to be connected some way, which now. But the most important thing is we're connected. So, and you definitely belong on this series. So, we're happy to have you here. And I guess the best place to start would be, here's the keyword: briefly introduce yourself. Because I remember Jay Leno talking to Robin Williams, and he said, all I have to do with you, Robin, is say, "Hey, Robin," and the rest is history. Nothing else. He just goes from there. So can you just tell us where you're from, where you are now, a little bit about maybe family, maybe something you've never told anybody else you want to reveal now? Also, we can do that, but just like that, and then we'll get into the business stuff. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good. So thank you. My name is Karen Carponi. I'm really happy to be here. Grateful to Brady and Pete for introducing us. And yeah, a little bit about me. Right now, I've got my own consulting company. So I tell people it's about people, planet, purpose, and prosperity. So I think there's a way to do good and prosper. I've had my consulting company for over a decade, and I really just help celebrities, influencers, companies, people with, branding, marketing, business development, sustainability. That's an area that I'm very passionate about. And I just think it's about strategic partners. I think if you align the right people, you can amplify any message or grow any business.
We disagree with
With
that 100%. From what we do, we disagree with that 100%. So the question was, where are you
Yeah.
from? Where are you now? Tell us about your family. Tell us about you a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm from Bolivia. I grew up in Bolivia. My dad's American, my mom's Bolivian. So I was fortunate to live in this like dual cultural environment. And yeah, I guess I can talk a little bit about my family. Like I think my growing up biculturally was very interesting. Living in a third world country was also very interesting. Um my dad was a diplomat, so he worked with the U.S. Agency for International Development. So I always saw him doing these amazing development projects around the world, right? And so I always felt like I was going to be a diplomat. And then on my mom's side, my mom and her father came over from Germany, and he literally crossed the Amazon jungle by himself with his dog, with his German Shepherd. So I was just so inspired by his stories, right? And his love for nature and animals. So I think I developed appreciation for, nature and animals through that side of the family. So I think I've just been wired at a young age to have a positive impact.
Well, that's a good question because I was going to ask
Yeah.
you, as a kid and then a teenager, where were you at the different times? Were you in Bolivia the whole time? Where were you at different times? Were you always doing like good projects? Were you involved in music? Were you involved in nature walks? What was life like for you?
Yeah. So I was born in Connecticut, but we moved to Bolivia when I was 6, 7 years old. So the bulk of my life has been here in Bolivia, and I'm actually in Bolivia right now. So yeah, I graduated from high school in Bolivia, and then I moved back to the US to go to college. I went to the University of Colorado.
What type of a kid were you though? Were you doing What were you
Oh
doing?
yeah, I was always outside in nature in the mountains. Bolivia has incredible natural beauty. They have some of the largest salt flats in the world, the Amazon jungle, lots of animals, very athletic. My mom was a swimmer and a volleyball player, and my dad captained the Yukon football team. So I came from a and he was recruited to play professionally. So I came from a very, athletic family as well. So always being outdoors and in nature and active was I guess that could describe my childhood.
And entonces te hablas español.
Claro que sí. Yeah.
Mejor
Oh, look
que
at
yo.
you. Your Spanish is pretty good.
No, no debo practicar mucho para tener en conversación total. Debo practicar.
That's great.
I'll do that. We'll practice more offline.
We'll do the next interview in Spanish.
That'll be a good challenge. I'm up for it. We'll try. El próximo. No way? No,
Del
see?
próximo.
I always get
Yeah.
mixed up with my French too at the same time. So but it's fun. So Tell us about the first part of your journey. You started with, Colorado, University of Colorado, and then Thunderbird, who I also respect as a great international institution, international affairs, business and marketing, and you went into corporate marketing, and it must have been an exciting journey, that part. And then what I thought was really, fascinated me anyways, as a founding member of the House of Marley. Can you tell us about that journey to there?
Yeah. So I think, I think I was always wired, right, for positive impact. And I thought I was going to go down the diplomat route like my dad. So I did study international affairs at the University of Colorado, and I did dabble in that area for a while. I came back to Bolivia and worked for a year supporting small and medium-sized companies with their constraints in importing and exporting. And I ended up doing a similar project to that in Egypt. And both of these projects were financed by USAID. And it was fun and it was exciting. But what I realized was that, these organizations, they come in, they develop these amazing development programs that last about 5 years, and then they pull out the funding and the programs die. Right. So I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. They should be creating programs that are sustainable, that can last on their own. Right. And then from a budget perspective, they wanted to have the same budget next year. So at the end of the year, if they didn't spend the money, they'd go ahead and, they try to spend the money. And so I just felt it was a bit wasteful. And so I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I decided to go to Thunderbird and make that transition from kind of like the nonprofit government activities that I was kind of heading down, right? And so I got my MBA at Thunderbird, focused in international business with an emphasis in marketing. And when I graduated, Thunderbird was like ranked #1, which was great, but the economy had crashed, and so I graduated with all this debt, student debt, right? Like a lot of people in the U.S. And I was like, now what, right? So a friend said, why don't you just move to Miami? And with your Spanish background, it'll probably be easier to get a job. So my focus at that point was, let me get a job and pay off my debt, right? So I ended up in kitchen appliances, which I not passionate about, but it was a corporate job, and it gave me the skills of sales and marketing and branding. And, I got to go to China and, I interacted with, researchers and industrial designers. And it really gave me that playground, I think, to understand all the different aspects of business, but in a big corporate, environment. But I wasn't passionate about it. What it also gave me was my first celebrity brand. So I got to work on the George Foreman grills, and that was really exciting. So after a decade of that, paying off all of my debt, I was like, now what? And I did a Tony Robbins event. I did Date with Destiny, and I walked away from that. And I was just very clear. I said, that's it. I no longer want a job. I want a purpose. And my purpose is to have a positive impact on people on the planet, however it manifests. And literally within a week, I got a phone call out of the blue from a headhunter. And they said, I have your dream job. Do you know who Bob Marley is? And I was like, of course I know who Bob Marley is. And I was like, well, first of all, it's not a job, it's my purpose. And it was literally helping the Bob Marley family launch a series of eco-friendly companies. And it was great. It was my first entrepreneurial experience, right? Like creating this company from scratch. I got to shadow a family office that funded the whole project. So that was exciting. We basically took Bob Marley's message, right? That he gave in his music of authenticity and charity and love and, the planet and sustainability and youth. And so we took all of this amazing message that he gave in his music, and we said, how can we translate this into products and services and get his message out there as a movement? So that was the bigger picture of it. But yeah, we launched the first eco-friendly headphone company ever. And this was, and it was still the green movement. It was very novel. Nobody in the consumer electronic industry had ever thought about doing anything sustainable with materials. So it was a challenge, but I loved every minute of it. It was such a great experience. And I'm still connected with the Marley family and the House of Marley, and they give me updates all the time. And, I help promote them whenever I can.
Well, is it Ziggy, the big guy in Miami, right? I guess, is it Ziggy?
Yeah, Ziggy's, yeah, Ziggy. Actually, there's a lot of them in Miami.
Yeah.
Zadella Marley, Rohan Marley,
Rohan,
Ziggy. No,
yes.
Ziggy's in LA, I think, right now. Anyway, they're very transient. They're all over the place.
Was it Rohan? Which one played for the Hurricanes? I think football.
Rohan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rohan was spokesperson for the House of Marley. So I
So you
spent a
have to
lot of time with Rohan.
you have to introduce me to that headhunter because I want to hire him. If that's the type of searches he does, I want to hire him for our
Yeah.
firm. So you'll
Yeah.
have to introduce me to him. So
Absolutely.
that would be
Absolutely.
great. We actually, so we founded Fifth Element on the basis that leaders and their businesses can do way better when they're doing good. You kind of touched on it there. How have you applied that to celebrities or with celebrities and their business and brand and making a difference?
Yeah, well, I think I mean, after 3 years with the with the Marley family, that evolved into working with Akon, and that was really exciting because Sadella Marley always said, it'd be great to get back to Africa, and Bob had a passion for Africa, and I remember at the time I said, my next stop is Africa, and I had no idea it was going to happen the way it happened, but I got to work with Akon and create his solar energy business with him and his business partner from Africa. And I ended up going to 27 countries with him. We did projects in about 10 countries, from villages to presidents. And I mean, it was fascinating. And, we built it through a lot of strategic partnerships, right? Like I mentioned before, it's all about alignment with the right partners. And we partnered with the NBA Africa. We lit up basketball courts in Africa. We did a soccer pitch in Nigeria. And I would say one of my favorite projects was a Light to Learn campaign. So it was combining energy and education. And we did that with the president of Liberia. And she was the first female president ever in Africa. And she wanted her legacy to be educational reform. So we helped her with her program, by providing electricity to some of the schools that she was piloting to see what system would be the best system in order to transform the educational system in Liberia. But what was great about it, just going back to your question on helping celebrities and influencers doing good and leveraging their voice, I told Akon when I first met him, I said, Bob Marley passed away. He transitioned when he was 36 years young, right? As they say. And he didn't have the opportunity to define and create his legacy, right? And Akon was probably in his early 40s. And I was like, Akon, I'm like, you have the gift of life, right? You have this opportunity to define your legacy and what you want to do. So it really gave him, I think, that perspective to start thinking about his legacy and kind of the bigger picture of what he wants to leave in the world. But, I think these celebrities are amazing. They have reach, right? And they can do so much with their voice if they choose, right? To go down that path and to align themselves with the right network and the right ecosystem to support them.
It's great when they're obviously authentic about it, which actually then helps their brand and business more too, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of times they're the artists, right? They may not be the business mind, but they're the artists, right? That's their gift. That's their skill, is being the artist, right? And surrounding themselves with the right business people, the right entrepreneurs, the right investors, the right, and again, just, it's all about partnerships and aligning on values.
Yeah, rather than just getting your name stuck on a restaurant and that's your big deal, which is what they used to do a lot before. And I've been known to compare sports to life a lot and to do a ton of sports analogies, which I get teased about, but they're really good analogies, I think, anyways. But better than my dad jokes, I've been told, for sure. And so I love the goal you had with ESG, which, to quote you said, to inspire a generation to reimagine entrepreneurship as sport. Can you share why this made sense and dollars, if you will, and the impact, with and by diverse partners that you had in so many ways?
Yeah, I think this was such a fascinating project. It was called the Entrepreneurship Sports Generation, and it was started by Shiv Khemka in India through his foundation. The Global Education, it's called TGAL. They always have all these acronyms, right? But his foundation has a lot of different initiatives. But in this case, he's such an incredible, savvy businessman. He built businesses all over the world. And his vision was, how can we support entrepreneurs, right? So he made this connection between sports, sports teams and entrepreneurs, right? And they need to have, if you think about it, they need to have the same skill set, right? An entrepreneur and a sports person, they need to have those leadership skills. They need to have the team skills, right? They need to be able to build a team, work with a team, communicate with a team. They need to have that commitment, that drive, that grind, right? Because it's hard to be a professional athlete. It's hard to be an entrepreneur, right? And so it in his mind, it was a great connection, right? To kind of bring this life into this entrepreneurial world, right? Like, and make the analogy to sports with that. But his vision was, how can I create this entrepreneurship contest and bring entrepreneurs from all over the world and really build that network that can elevate them and support them from country to country, right? So I got to work side by side by him. I learned so much. He's an amazing human being. I have so much respect for him, and he's probably, I'm a super connector. I love connecting people, but he's got to be the most well-connected person I've ever met. But it was great. I helped him build this network of, alliances and companies and mentors and consultants, to really help elevate, country by country, these entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs create jobs, right? They create jobs, they, build communities, they're important.
I thought it was spectacular when I saw that. And even to the point where there's so many young people, like we work with street kids in soccer and helping them. And a lot of kids come from the street and that's their way out, or their way out is basketball or whatnot. And one thing that's missing most of the time, and it's being addressed to some degree, and I love this arena, if you will, is there's so many more opportunities in sports than being the person on the team, because only so many people, Arthur Ashe used to say that you need a plan B. Only a few hundred people are making it to the NBA, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me, one of the organizations I love and I support is Pitbull. Pitbull has a charter school in Miami called Sports Leadership and Management. It was his first one, but now they have about 11 or 12. But he said the same thing. A lot of these inner city kids think their ticket out of poverty is to become a professional athlete, and the percent that actually do is so small. So he's like, let's create this charter school that gives them the skill set to actually get a job in the sports industry, right? Because you can be a massage therapist, you can be a journalist, you can be a news reporter, there's so many jobs. And so by giving them the skills already within middle school and high school, right? They already have that plan B. It's an incredible program. So, yeah.
I love it. Because unfortunately, most kids don't make it as pro athletes, and they can still be involved and do stuff. So I'd love to learn more about that. I think, this Fifth Element, we launched it on International Women's Day about 4 years ago. It's one of the reasons we named ourselves Fifth Element, because of SDG 5. So we engage with leaders who care like you, who really understand the value of diversity. For example, every search we do on our whole talent part of our business is a diverse search, for getting diverse candidates. And can you describe your journey as a woman in business, and doing stuff like getting sponsorship, getting partnerships going? I know it probably comes natural to you, but it is and has been in the past even more so, more difficult, more different for women. But how did you navigate and thrive in it, basically, especially and including in the number of countries that you went to?
Yeah. If I'm brutally honest, it was challenging at times, right? I think it's challenging for women overall sometimes, right? Women investors, women in business, women in corporate, women in politics, sometimes it is a challenging road, but I think, I navigated it just, by always being, I think authentic, and again, aligning with mentors and people that have already walked that path. There's so much to learn there. And then, aligning with the right people, right? You put good people with good people, good stuff is going to happen, right? And I would say, some of my favorite woman-led organizations, one would be the Sherry Blair Foundation. She's helping 100,000 women entrepreneurs. She's a great woman leader. Her team is phenomenal. And what they're doing is amazing. Another one is Daughters for Earth, right? I love Daughters for Earth. I just joined their advisory circle.
Oh, cool.
And It was founded by amazing women leaders. This lady, Zainab Selby, she created the largest grassroots women movement called Women for Women back when there was no websites. So she mobilized women like pre-website.
That's a
So
big
she's
deal.
fascinating. That's a big deal. And it's the largest group today, right? And organization today. And she partnered with Justin Winters, who's a climate change activist. She, collaborated with Leonardo DiCaprio. She's just on the forefront of climate change. And together they realized that women don't have a voice in climate change, right? On the grassroots level. They're one of the most marginalized groups within climate change. So they said, how can we give women a voice in climate change and an opportunity and the means to really have an impact on the grassroots level? So these two ladies coming together with the rest of their team, Rachel and Jody, and their team is phenomenal. So I joined them and I'm helping them, give them recommendations of amazing women leaders around the world that can apply for grants and help really impact climate change. So they're great. And I think, and the last organization that is important to me that I think really supports women leaders, it's run by Bill Tai. And he's just an amazing, tech guy from Silicon Valley. He created an organization called ACTI. It stands for Athletes, Conservation, Technology, Artists, and Innovation. And he calls it his tribe. And again, it's just bringing the right people together. And he supports a lot of women in investing and, startups, and they use technology for good. So it's just the right, finding your right tribe or building your tribe, right? Like what Bill Tai has created. So
No, I love all of those. I must admit, I especially love the Women for Women pre-internet, pre-website stuff, because I was an executive director with JC's International, which is a leadership development nonprofit. That's how I came down to the States. And we grew that to over just under 700,000 members around the world. And if I only would have known what an internet or a Facebook or a LinkedIn was at the time, because there wasn't one, it would have been fantastic. I get her. And these are like leaders who care, who we have to interview.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you have to interview Justin and Zainab. I mean, Zainab is just phenomenal. So
well, let's do it.
Happy to make some introductions. Yes.
Super cool. It makes a good segue. You probably know this, but in LA we talk about there's this old TV and movies, and we talk about always leave them wanting more, which means we get to do a sequel. So we'll probably have to do a sequel to this at some point. Yeah. But I do want to ask you this. It's a good segue as well to your work with the Visionary Media Group and their PE group, who I got to know Ron through that, and he's Mr. Energy in his own right, and Playing for Change, which I've always loved. And when I met Jake, it was great because I loved it. And one of my favorite quotes is Maya Angelou, where she talks about everybody will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
She'll say most of the time everybody will forget what you said, everybody will forget what you've done, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And can you share about your alignment with Ron's groups, basically? Make the connection for the value of storytelling and the work that they're doing with that it does make what we both believe in a better economic impact when they're making the social and environmental impact at the same time, including with the 100 billion meals challenge that we're doing and Street Child that Ron wants to get involved in, and hopefully we can all do. But I know that's a long question I just did, but can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, first I'll start with Ron. Ron and his wife are amazing, right? And they're so aligned. And you talked about, people remember how you made them feel. And, he was an eye surgeon by trade, and him and his wife did all these missions around the world, and they gave the gift of sight through cataract surgeries. What an amazing way to leave an impact, right, on people's lives. And then of course they realized, well, that there's got to be, how can we have an even bigger impact, right? So they created the Visionary Private Equity group, and it's an amazing purpose-driven private equity group. They've got, over 40 companies, and I recently met them this year, and I immediately joined their team. I immediately invested. I'm an LP. And one of the things that I love about them is, from an impact perspective, is that they found a way to create an ecosystem within their group, right? Within the companies that they bring in. So they're all purpose driven, but then they found a way to create partnerships and campaigns within the companies and cross pollinate so that they can, all tides can rise, right?
Sure.
And it's great. And then they have the media group, right? So then they work with several influencers, and then you have the opportunity to use the voice of these influencers across the companies in the network. So that's been great. It's been an amazing experience. I joined their team probably about 8 months ago, but I'm excited to see where else we go with it. Yeah,
I'm excited to do more obviously with you and with him too. And it's kind of appropriate. It's called the Visionary, group, to say the least, based on what he's done in his, with that and eyes, and just an amazing guy. And you're right. Good.
Yeah, and just to tie it in with what you said about the 100 billion meal plan.
Mm-hmm.
So the visionary groups support Feed My Starving Children, right? So then combining with like what you're doing is perfect, because Feed My Starving Children already feeds like a lot of, millions of families. So by bringing these organizations together, again, it's just about, amplifying a network of networks type of effect, right?
Yeah, the sum of the parts is worth more, right? Than just individuals.
Yeah.
And, so last question for this chapter, because we'll definitely have to do a sequel, is, and one client told me this in 2021, this
Playing for change. Playing for change.
What about Playing for Change?
Yes, we forgot them. So Playing for Change.
Oh, we didn't
You
forget
love
them.
Playing
Go
for Change.
for it. Yeah.
Right. I want to talk about that. Your question had lots of parts to it. So so you did mention Playing for Change previously. I'm also a big fan of them. I've known them for over a decade. So I brought Playing for Change to Visionary. And so now they've partnered and they've done an MOU, and they're going to be working on campaigns together. But yeah, I joined the Playing for Change board this year, and they're great. Their songs have over 20 million views on average, right? And all the proceeds and money that they raise goes to build these amazing schools around the world. And they've got 50 schools in about 17 countries. So I'm excited to see how that partnership evolves as well.
Yeah, and I'm planning on getting in there like big time. I actually had spoken to not Jake, whoever it was, a few years back, way before COVID. I had reserved the Greek Theater to do a special event there, and I wanted them to be involved in it. And something happened. It was at the end of the season, and they had reserved it, but it couldn't happen. But I love what they do. So meeting Jake was just the cherry on the cake, or whatever you call that stupid saying.
Yeah.
and
there's a lot you can do there, right? With 100 billion meals, with the street kids, soccer street kid program that you have. I mean, there's a lot you can tie in music to any of that, right? Like music is just so powerful,
right? Music and sports, all the time.
Oh my God, leveraging music to inspire and change people. I mean, it just, and elevate messages. It's a great, great tool.
Yeah, I should introduce them. I told them about, I don't know if you ever heard of Kulu Lam, but they bring people together singing, people like Palestinians, Israeli people that shouldn't be together. They bring them together singing, and it's a great thing also. So we'll talk about it. Last question for this chapter.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. This is awesome. And I was going to talk about, a client told me in 2021, he was talking about the year 2020. He said, Mark, the year 2020, it flew by slowly, he told me. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what a great way of putting it, because it sometimes feels like it was yesterday, and then who knows, so long ago. With all that's happened in the last few years, what are you most grateful for? And what are you most hopeful for?
Yeah, gosh, I would say grateful. I'm grateful for my family, and I'm just grateful for these tribes and communities that I've been able to surround myself with, right? Relationships are everything to me, and people are the ones that make the difference. So I'm just grateful for those communities around me and my family, and the opportunity to, create positive change with them. And what am I most hopeful for? I'm just hopeful for a more positive future, kinder leaders, inspirational leaders. I think we just need a kinder world, right? I think we just need to stop and, take an opportunity to remember, why we're here. And I think I think COVID did that a little bit, right? It gave people a lot of time to stop and reflect and prioritize what's important in life. And I think, and I hope I hope that energy, that shift that happened is, lasts a long time.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. It does take less muscles to smile than frown.
Yeah, so true.
So
And
yeah,
smiling is contagious. Laughing is contagious. So we need more of that.
we definitely need more laughter. I love comedy clubs. We definitely need more laughter, and we need more leaders like you, leaders who care for real, because that does bring the kindness with it and stuff. So thanks for being one of those leaders who care, and a new friend of mine as well, and for being on the series. We really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And I look forward to connecting you with some other great leaders to join your program.
Sounds like a great plan to me.